Very good. Welcome everybody. So today I'm going to go over the emergency preparedness policy, the disaster preparedness plan. So that quiz is located in your folder. But then I also want to touch on our facility-wide assessment. That's just something I have to review on an annual basis with everybody. Does everyone remember what the facility-wide assessment is? I talked about that at the Winter Wonderland last December. Very good. This is going to be exciting for all of you then. All right, strap in.
Once you start talking, maybe we'll remember.
Yeah. So, facility assessment. So the basic regulation is the facility must conduct and document a facility-wide assessment to determine what resources are necessary to care for its residents. They need to do this at least annually, and they must also review and update this assessment whenever there is, or the facility plans for, any change that would require substantial modification to the care that it provides. So the basic intent is for the facility to evaluate its resident population and identify the resources needed to take care of our residents. So let's just kind of dive into it then. So items that need to be included in the facility assessment, both the number of residents and our resident capacity. What's our resident capacity here at Bethany Home Brandon? 58. So we have 58 total rooms here at Bethany Brandon, but Melissa, you are correct there as well. We are licensed for 60. And that's if two residents want to cohabitate a room if they're a husband and wife. So we allow that for them. So right now we have 57, and then as of tomorrow, I believe we'll be up at 58. So the other thing that's required is you need to describe the care required by your resident population, considering the types of diseases, conditions, physical, cognitive needs, and other pertinent factors that pertain to your resident population. So we need to go through and look at all of our residents and say, how many of our residents have congestive heart failure? How many of our residents have diabetes? How many of our residents have dementia or some kind of cognitive disability? So those are things that we need to include in that facility assessment. The staff competencies that are necessary to provide the level and types of care needed for the resident population. So what training do we need to provide our staff? That's something that we have outlined in that facility assessment as well. The physical environment, equipment, services, and other physical plant considerations. So what equipment do we need to care for our residents? How many lifts do we need? How many spa rooms do we have? Just a lot of those items. So what supplies do we use? I know, Melissa, you know that inside and out. So what do we actually need to take care of our people? Any ethnic, cultural, or religious factors that potentially affect the care provided by our facility. So just like in my Quappy presentation, we need to be resident-centered. We need to have the understanding that, you know, as we move forward here, we might have a resident that, because of their religion or cultural factors, they can't have a certain type of food. Or we need to be able to provide certain religious activities for residents. We are a faith-based organization that are owned by, you know, member Lutheran churches, but we have Catholics in our facility. We have Baptists in our facility. You know, we need to make sure that we acquiesce to those needs too. So, our facility assessment is broken up into 3 parts. Your first part is just your resident profile. So how many residents do you have? How full is your facility? How many admissions do you have? How many discharges do you have? Things along those lines. One of the bigger parts of it is the acuity of your resident population. And what acuity means is just how much care your resident population needs. So that's really just going to give you information to help you understand what kind of residents we have and what staffing we need to take care of those residents. Again, you just want to make sure that it's resident-centered, resident-centered, resident-centered. So part 2 for your facility assessment are the services and care we offer based on resident needs. And this is going to include all services provided here at our facility. So I would highly encourage you to look through all of our facility assessments. I will be doing our annual review of them and doing some updates to it here in the next couple of months, so I'll let you know when that is complete. But for now, we have our facility assessment located in each of our neighborhoods in the cubbies on the nurse's station. So if you have some downtime, take a look through that. And then services are added or taken away as necessary during the assessment process. So if we have a new admission that, you know, we notice, I haven't taken care of a person with this kind of condition, or if someone from dietary is in here, you know, I haven't looked at, I haven't had a resident that, you know, has had this dietary restriction. Let your manager know, let myself know, so we can update that in our facility assessment. Let's say we start taking residents that have trachs, you know, we need to include in the facility assessment what kind of training we'll need to provide our staff now, what kind of equipment we need for the trachs. So anytime we have something new that needs to be added, we need to include it. Part 3 would be your resources that are needed to provide that support and care. So your staff type, your staffing plan, staff education, and then your physical environment. And then of course your emergency preparedness plan and your community risk assessment, which we'll discuss here coming up. We need policies and procedures for our facility assessment, and those are updated on an annual basis. Policy revision is just an ongoing process. So, and then your community risk assessment, that's used to get a sense of what the largest threats are. So what are some of the threats that we see here on a yearly basis? Weather. I mean, that's the big one every single year. We've experienced pretty much everything that we can experience in the past year since I've been here. We've experienced a blizzard where we've had people shut in here. We just experienced a power outage 2 weeks ago. So we've experienced it all. So basically what our community risk assessment is going through and assigning a score to each thing that might pose a risk to our facility. So obviously like earthquakes isn't going to be on there unless they're, you know, if there's an earthquake happening in South Dakota, we have bigger problems. So, things to remember about the facility assessment, just looks at our overall residents' acuity and our ability to take care of our residents. Resident-centered, if you notice anything that needs to be added to that facility assessment, please let myself know so I can get that added. Just like our QAPI plan and just like our emergency preparedness plan, every single one of us is going to be required to at least have a basic understanding of what the facility assessment is and what is included in that facility assessment. So state might come in and say, where's your facility assessment located, and do you know what the purpose of that facility assessment is? So just be prepared for that. Any questions on the facility assessment?
Where is it located in Sioux Falls?
It should be located on each neighborhood as well.
Okay.
So,
Is that the same with assisted living then, at the Meadows?
this is just,
Oh, okay.
sorry, just pertinent for nursing homes.
Okay.
Yeah, Bethany Meadows did not need to do a facility assessment.
Okay.
So I'm sure at some point in the next coming years, they will need to. But
Sure.
as of now, you guys do not have a facility assessment.
And you said it should be up with all the binders and those
Mhm.
cupboards?
Yep. Yes, ma'am. Okay, now let's go over our emergency preparedness, and this is the quiz that you do have, so follow along with that as we go forward here. Does everyone know where our emergency preparedness plan and disaster plans are?
Nurse's station.
It's in the red coat down in the dish room.
They are located in the red totes in the scullery on,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In Sioux Falls, it's different,
yeah, in
it's
Sioux
different.
Falls.
It's by the nurse's station,
Yes,
in every area, it's by the nurse's station.
correct. So in Brandon, we have them in red totes, in our sculleries, those are those little sink areas on each neighborhood. In Sioux Falls, they have them at the nurse's station. And then at Meadows, I believe they have them, do they have them on each neighborhood in Meadows?
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Who came up with that name?
Huh?
It was on the door.
The scullery?
It's on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's on cotton. Someone just found the definition of what that is, so. The purpose of our emergency preparedness plan is to prepare and inform all Bethany employees of the steps needing to be taken in the event of an emergency. So in the event of an emergency, I would be the person in charge if I'm here. If I'm not here, Katie would be in charge, or Joanne would be in charge if you're in Sioux Falls. Who is the person in charge if neither the director of nursing or the administrator are here? Huh?
Charge nurse?
The charge nurse.
Oh.
On Dakota Plum. Sorry, I should have said Deb was the one in Sioux Falls. But, yep, so the charge nurse on Plum for Brandon and the charge nurse on Dakota in Sioux Falls would be the person in charge in the event of an emergency. So a disaster can be defined as any of the following, and these are all included. Fire, tornado, blizzard, gas leak, flood, electrical power outage, bomb threat, heating failure, explosion, active shooter, or any situation where we would need to shelter in place. So, notification. So let's say we have a fire. What do we say?
Fire, and then where is that?
Correct. So you want to go over the overhead and say fire, let's say it's on Cottonwood. Fire Cottonwood Court, fire Cottonwood Court, fire Cottonwood Court. Missing resident Plum Creek, missing resident Plum Creek, missing resident Plum Creek. Or 100 Wing, if we're over on the assisted living. Yep. So announcements are to be made 3 times. And then, once the fire is put out, the resident is found, the emergency situation is over, you want to page all clear. So fire, Cottonwood Court, all clear, fire, Cottonwood Court, all clear, fire, Cottonwood Court, all clear.
Hunter, can we hear, like, in those instances, Meadows over on ours, and can they hear ours?
Yep, so we're gonna actually do a little printout of our intercoms. And in the event that we have emergencies, there's a intercom button, I think it's intercom 85, Melissa,
Sounds like you're right.
for both sides. It's either 83 or 85 that will go to the phones on both sides.
Oh, okay.
So we'll get that printed out, we're gonna put that by all of our phones.
That's nice, so it'll be the size we could just.
Because
keep
when they
writing
have
on.
a fire drill, we can hear when they say all clear.
Correct, yeah. So, in the event that we need to evacuate, the nursing process, so that person in charge, there's a red ID band in all of those red totes. So that charge nurse on Plum or Dakota needs to put that red ID band on so the emergency services can know who that person is. But then we also have ID bands, wrist ID bands for all of our residents that have their name, birth date, and then any sort of pertinent medications or allergies that they would have. And then we also have face sheets for all those residents. So if we need to send them to another nursing home, another hospital, that hospital can then know, okay, this is this person's name, their date of birth, and what medications they're on. So at least we can start to take care of them before we get them back to Bethany home. In the event that we do evacuate, just be prepared. You might get a call. It's an all hands on deck kind of thing there. We want to get as many people here as possible to make that happen as quickly as possible to get the residents to a safe place. One thing that I want to stress, and I stressed it at our spring fling as well, is in the event that we have any sort of emergency that is listed within our emergency preparedness plan, I need to be notified as soon as possible. So if I'm not here, the director of nursing should notify me, but if she's not here either, that charge nurse on Plum should notify me as well. So in the event that any of these following things happen, I need to be notified immediately. Death involving unusual circumstances, emergency requiring immediate repair authorization, fire, missing residents. Anytime our surveyors come in the building and I'm not here, please let me know. I would like to be here to help you guys with that process. Urgent resident and family problems, violence by staff or residents, and then any of the following things that we talked about here. I just cannot stress that enough. Even if I don't answer my phone, leave me a voicemail. I'll call you back as soon as I get that voicemail. So, let's see here. So one thing that we just experienced, electrical power outage. Was anybody here during that? No? Okay, so during that crazy storm that we had a couple weeks ago, we actually lost power here at the facility. And in the event that happens, you want to move all of your residents requiring oxygen or other life support measures into the hallways and plug those into those red outlets, because those red outlets are connected directly to the generator. You want to gather all necessary items such as flashlights and blankets, and then each facility is backed up by a generator which is frequently tested. Unfortunately, during that previous one, so we had 2 strikes of lightning. So the first one knocked out our power, generator kicked on. The second one knocked out the fuse that connects our generator to our building. So we actually didn't have any power. Our generator is running, but that fuse had been tripped. So we actually didn't have any power going to our facility. Now, we called our generator guy, and he's like, that is like a 1 in a million thing.
Yeah.
They say lightning never strikes twice, right? It does. So just be prepared for it. So now we have an understanding of what happens, and it's as simple as turning that fuse back on. But we didn't know that at the time. So if that happens, just call Dan immediately. You know, if the power goes out, call Dan immediately anyways, so you can get here and see what's going on. But we now know how to fix that. So
Is it just a breaker switch?
yeah, it's just a breaker switch. So
Where is that located?
Dan knows. So in the event of a fire, we go over fire all the time, but it's always good to go over it again. Pull the fire alarm, that notifies our local fire department. Announce overhead the fire and the location, and then follow your 6 emergency steps that are pointed out for you in the disaster plan. One of the biggest parts of that disaster plan is getting residents past that nearest smoke compartment. So each of our smoke compartments are all of our neighborhoods, so even on Meadows too. We have those doors that close, those are your smoke compartments. However, let's say the fire is on Plum, and all of our neighborhoods here are in that L shape. let's say it's in one of those corner rooms. If that fire is happening in that corner room, you can't bring residents past that smoke. So if you have residents that are heading down towards that back door, don't bring them up and bring them past this door. Just bring them right out that back door, okay? That's one of the most important things to remember in a fire is never bring residents through smoke. So you don't want to get that smoke inhalation. And do not use any elevators if you're over on Meadows. And then once that fire is clear, give that all clear. Severe weather, we've experienced a lot of it this summer. We'll experience a lot of it during the winter, I'm sure. So with those blizzard warnings and, a lot of snowfall. So everyone knows the difference between a watch and a warning, correct? Watch means the conditions are favorable for that event to occur, and a warning means that that has actually been spotted in our area. So in the event that we have any sort of watch come over one of our weather radios, and we have weather radios located on each neighborhood, in the event that we have any one of those severe weather watches come over the radio, the person in charge should come over the intercom and say, blizzard watch, blizzard watch, blizzard watch. So then we should just start getting prepared. If it's a severe thunderstorm watch is in effect. Say it 3 times. Staff should then go around, start closing windows, closing blinds, gathering those emergency supplies in case that warning comes. If that warning comes, and it's a tornado warning, severe weather warning, get our residents out into the hallways as far away from our windows as possible, so something doesn't come flying through the windows. If our residents are bed bound and aren't able to get out into the hallway, move their bed as far away from the window as possible and cover them with extra pillows and blankets to try to cushion them in case something does come through the window. Heat and humidity, we're kind of moving away from that now as we're moving into fall, but that's always something to remember. We still could have a couple of hot days. If it is up, high 80s, 90s, even if it gets to the hundreds, be constantly aware of your residents, be offering water, checking their vitals, making sure they're not overheating. A very important one that we have coming up, especially with this cold weather, is missing residents. So residence elopements, if our residents get out of the building during winter months, that danger is only amplified because you only need to be outside for so long during those cold months for some serious damage to happen. So, in the event that you think a resident might be missing, search all the rooms in the neighborhood where the resident was last seen. I cannot encourage us enough, search all of the rooms and their closets. When I was in Centerville, we had a missing resident, called the police, found him in their closet. So, yeah. So, page overhead, missing residents, whatever neighborhood you're on, and then all staff who is not currently occupied with caring for other residents should report to that neighborhood to receive instructions on who is missing, when they went missing, and what they look like, so we can start that search. If we still haven't found them after a comprehensive search of our building, then we need to move out to the grounds, and at that point we need to call 911, so we can get them involved, because we're not sure how far away that resident actually got if they're outside of our building. You also want to notify family. Just like myself, families don't like surprises. So, then you want to notify the director of nursing and myself. Get a face sheet with a picture of the resident to make available for our local law enforcement so they know who they're looking for too. Notify the physician as well. And then you also want to gather linens or clothes that the resident might have recently worn in case the police need to use any sort of dogs to help with that search if they can't find them. I saw the other day on the news, there was a missing resident in a nursing home. I can't remember what state it was in, but they had to actually bring out a helicopter and found him via infrared sensors. So that resident had been missing for I think 12 hours. So it had been a long time. So, all right. One thing I do want to touch on again as it's on the quiz, and we talked about it at the Winter Wonderland, but that's just an active shooter situation. So in that event, we have 3 options. The first option is always to run, okay? In those events, always be thinking of yourself. It's extremely difficult for us as healthcare providers because we want to take care of our residents, but think of yourself in those situations. If that occurs, find the nearest exit, get out of the building, call 911, okay? Your second option, if you aren't able to run, is to hide. Get into a closet, get into something, lock the door, and then finally, if you are confronted directly by that active shooter, fight. Okay, so run, hide, fight are those 3 options. Any questions on that? Okay, let's go over your quiz. So, number one, if there is a fire, should you page code 711 or fire 3 times?
Fire.
Fire.